The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 3, Einir, Chapter 3. As the Storm Shepherd finished speaking, Milla suddenly struck at the one holding her down, plunging her bone knife into the creature's middle finger. The knife sank hilt deep into the cloud flesh, and then bounced out again, the cloud reforming. "Don't do that," said the Storm Shepherd. "It tickles." Milla slid her knife back into her sleeve and took a deep breath. "I will be the one to die," she announced. "But only if Tal promises to take my sunstone to the Far Raiders and tell the crone mother of the ship everything I have seen." "Hold on," said Tal. He'd been thinking about the Storm Shepherd's curious reluctance to actually go ahead and kill one of them. "I don't think either of us has to die."
"Blood has been offered on old Riga Hill,"
roared the larger Storm Shepherd.
"A life must be given and a gift granted. The girl has offered her life and we will take it."
"No, take mine," said Tal quickly. "I'm offering as well, but only if Milla helps find the codex and takes it back to Ebbet so we can find Gref."
"2 lives?"
muttered the larger Storm Shepherd. It sounded confused.
"This is not the way of things. 1 life, 1 gift. That is the rule of the hill."
"What if we don't ask for a gift?" questioned Tal. "Say we gave you a gift instead of a life."
"No,"
grumbled the Storm Shepherd, shaking its head.
"Never before has this happened on old Riga Hill. 1 life is taken, 1 gift given."
"I would like a gift, Adris," said the other Storm Shepherd. "No one has ever given us a gift."
"There is no choice, Audris,"
said the larger Storm Shepherd.
"We are bound to the hill and must serve its wants."
"Adris and Odris," said Milla. "I am Milla of the Far Raiders, and that is Tal." "Of the Chosen," added Tal. The pressure on his chest was lightening. The Storm Shepherds obviously found it harder to crush people they'd been introduced to. Now that he knew their names, Tal could see differences between the 2 Storm Shepherds. Adris was taller by several stretchers and wider, and had more lightning running along its puffy arms and hands. Audris was slighter, and there were many more sparks in its eyes. From their shapes, Tal could tell Adris was male and Audris female.
"1 must die,"
repeated Adris. He was stuck on that. "But we have to decide, don't we?" asked Tal. "That's the nature of the binding, isn't it?" Tal knew that the great majority of the creatures of Einir were bound to particular places, or to follow certain paths, or to roam within severely limited boundaries. Within these bounds, they were also constrained to follow age-old spells and rituals. If Tal could work out the exact nature of the binding, he might be able to save himself and Milla. Adris didn't answer, but Tal saw Audris wink. "Let us up so we can talk about it," said Tal. "After all, you can catch us if we try to run away." The Storm Shepherds looked at each other. They lifted their hands and billowed back. Tal and Milla stood up and wiped the mud off their bodies. Most of it was on their backs. After a moment's hesitation, they helped each other get the worst of it off. "Now, let me get this straight," said Tal. "You 2 are bound to this hill. If blood is spilled here, then you must come and ask for life and give a gift in return."
"So it has always been,"
rumbled Adris. "Since the forgetting," added Audris. "The forgetting?" asked Tal, curious. "What was that?" "We do not know," replied Audris. "There is only the time before the forgetting, which we do not know, and the time after, which we do." "How is this going to help us?" whispered Milla to Tal. "Blind them with your sunstone, and we will run. They have said they are bound here. Once off the hill, we will be safe." "Their lightning isn't bound," Tal whispered back. "If we run, they'll probably roast us both."
"No whispering,"
ordered Adris. He was getting impatient again.
"Which one will die?"
"If you weren't bound to this hill, you wouldn't have to take a life, would you?" asked Tal. His question surprised the storm shepherds. Thunder crackled around them, and they bowed their heads together. They obviously thought their voices could not be heard, but even whispering, their voices were as loud as a human speaking normally.
Freedom?
Can he free us?
What will Rika do?
I can free you, announced Tal. Sort of, anyway. He hesitated before he continued. What he said next would seal his future, and could not be unsaid.
How?
Boomed Adris. You will have to volunteer to become our spirit shadows, Tal blurted out. He felt sick, knowing that he was giving up the future he'd dreamed about, of a dragon spirit shadow like the Empress's, or a majestic maned cat like Ebbet's. That made him feel guilty, too. How could he even temporarily value that more than Gref's freedom, or his mother's life? He'd also forgotten what it would mean to Milla. What? Exploded Milla. She looked at Tal as if he had suddenly turned into a Merwin. I cannot have a spirit shadow! It's the only thing I can think of, explained Tal wretchedly. Great Uncle Ebbet told me once about an Inerian creature who volunteered to be a spirit shadow, instead of being forced. It bound itself freely to a chosen, and so became free of the bonds that held it to a place. Of course, the chosen who led it wasn't allowed to bring it back until it was rebound to be an actual servant, not a companion. Anyway, if they volunteer, we don't have to mark the bounds or speak the words. We just share the shadow, which means giving them our natural shadows. My shadow? Asked Milla, her voice as cold as the ice she came from. Her hand was on the hilt of her Merwin horn sword. We have shared much, Tal of the Chosen, but do not think you have made me like you. I will not give up my shadow. I would rather die. Tal shook as he held back angry words. He couldn't believe Milla was being so stubborn. Everything depended on this, their own lives, his whole family. Besides, he was honoring her, giving her the opportunity to get a spirit shadow, to become almost like a chosen. He turned back to the storm shepherds, but Odris forestalled his next question. Both of us must be freed from the hill. You must take both of us to be spirit shadows. Milla shook her head. Tal stared at her. Their eyes met, but neither Chosen nor Icecarl blinked. It was a test of wills. Tal was sure that asking the storm shepherds to voluntarily join them as spirit shadows was the only way to avoid either himself or Milla being sacrificed. They were still staring when the ground beneath their feet suddenly shook, dropping at least a stretch. Tal and Milla both fell over again. Milla went over backward and struck her head on a stone.
Rika waits!
Roared Adris.
We accept your offer!
He reached forward and placed his hand around Tal's shadow, as if he would pick it up. But he did not close his fingers. Andres did the same to Milla's shadow. Tal expected the ice girl to protest or move away, but Milla had struck her head sharply. She groggily tried to sit up, but her shadow didn't move enough to evade Odris's grasp. Both storm shepherds paused. The ground continued to quake under Tal's feet, and he saw thin cracks suddenly run through the mud. Then they grew wider and joined, till one huge crack ran under Tal and Milla. Light! Boomed Odris. We cannot take your shadows without your light! Tal tore his attention away from the quickly widening crack under him. It was opening like a mouth to swallow him up. He looked at Milla for an instant and made his decision. Look after your mother and the children, Tal. I'm depending upon you. He raised his sunstone above his head and called the light that was used in the final part of his spirit shadow binding, the light that moved through all 7 colors, the light that shared the shadow. In that strange rainbow flicker, both his and Milla's shadows appeared more solid, more real. The storm shepherds picked them up and thrust them into the middle of their cloud bodies, where their hearts would be if they had them. Tal felt a wrench as his shadow disappeared, and a rush of cold air that seemed to pass through his head. Immediately he became more aware of the amount of moisture in the air, and of the wind and sky. Small sparks shot out of his fingers and around his sunstone. On the ground, Milla was also briefly surrounded by crackling sparks. Then the hill split completely in two, revealing a deep, dark abyss. Tal teetered on the edge, flailing his arms as he tried to regain his balance. Milla, still half unconscious, slid over the edge in a fountain of loose dirt, mud, and stone. Both fell into the dark earth.